If we all believe that relationships are hard work, then this is what we are going to get. Words, the beliefs, the way we think is a very powerful approach to our reality. Several years ago, I said no to this paradigm and I started to invest really deeply in my relationship skills, understanding the underlying patterns, mechanics, blueprints, things at play. And oh my gosh, I realized that most of us invest more into our career than into our social skills. At that point, I had very clear we need something new. So 5 years ago, I founded Modern Couples, the antidote to couples therapy, because I believe that there is a group of people who wants to proactively learn these things much rather than wait until the shit hits the fan. There's a group of people out there, and you are probably one of them, and that's why you're here, who has no time for bad relationships. In this podcast, we talk about inspirational stories, role models, how to navigate the good, the bad, the ugly, and raise the bar, showing up for each other and for love. I speak with experts from different fields that potentially have never thought about how their expertise applies to relationships, but it does. And I share my own entrepreneurial journey. We talk about love, purpose, and growth. I invite you to listen up, not just with your ears, but with your heart. And share your aha moments, because that's what's going to rewire your brain to 10x your love. Ooh, I am excited for this one. Today, I have the pleasure and honor to talk to Anna and Kaspar. I will briefly introduce how we know each other, and then I will hand it over to you. I'm so excited to have you here. Anna and I went to university together. We actually studied in Maastricht together. It was not that our lives back then were like largely intertwined, not at all. But then, like over the years, when once each and every one of us went on our own journey, I think it was through social media that I thought, oh wow, like we actually have some shared interests, and I reconnected. And last summer, 23, we met at a biohacking event in Munich, and it was so nice to see you again. It's this moment of like 10 years later, who have you become? And all of a sudden it's like, wow, we share so many values. So that was really nice. And there I also got to meet Kaspar, your husband, and the two of you were back then expecting your second child. Now I think it's there. and and I got I got to experience, Kaspar, one of your breathwork sessions, which really felt like an advanced experience. I got to experience some new techniques, and you were playing handpan, and we were out there in the garden under the sun in Munich. It was a wonderful experience to see you in your zone there. So yeah, this is how I got to meet the two of you together. And for this interview, especially when I talk to couples, I would love for each and every one of you to explain, no, to introduce us to the other person. So Kaspar, who is Anna, and Anna, who is Kaspar, in a way, that is not on the website to find. Who is this beautiful soul that is in your life?
Is there anything that's not on the website? I don't know. This is my amazing wifey, Anna, and she's absolutely wonderful. I'm just getting lost in your eyes now. I'll try to make it not too cheesy, but I am pretty cheesy with these things. Anna is extremely intelligent and extremely funny, and she's a natural leader, and she is an amazing musician and a really wonderful mother. And yeah, in the last 7 years, she has been my anchor in my personal and professional life, keeping me sane and always with a very powerful but gentle presence in my life and in the life of our kids, and also a big inspiration to our community simply by existing without trying. I mean, you work very hard. She's a very hard worker, but somehow also just naturally attracts really incredible people around her and really incredible circumstances. And also me. Lucky me that you've also attracted me.
It's my best manifestation just yet.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Is that good? I think that's pretty good.
That's pretty flattering. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Kaspar is my wonderful hubby, wonderful, handsome hubby. And there's a lot of things that people already know about him that are on the website, and that people have experienced in working with him, in meeting him. But what really stands out for me is that he is somebody who is so incredibly kind and always looking for a way to serve people in a really honest, in a really, really grounded and ethical way. And in that, he's also a wonderful father to our children. I honestly couldn't imagine a better father for our kids. I said the other day to him, like, oh man, I wish every kid in this world had a dad like you. And I really mean it. And in our relationship, I'm just so grateful that I get to be inspired by Kaspar every day, because there's so many things that he's interested in, so many wild new concepts and ideas and interests and instruments, especially, that he brings into the house. So never gets boring with Kaspar. His brain also works in a way where he just manages to draw connections between things that I would have never thought to bring together. So I'm constantly inspired by the way he thinks, the way he orchestrates ideas. And with Kaspar by my side, I really feel like everything's possible. So a lot of the things that I've stepped into since being with Kaspar is based on his trust and sort of his, it's not even that he says it necessarily, but there's just the sort of sense in the room when he's there is that things are possible. Just go for it. Just do it. Right? Like there's absolutely no doubt that things won't work out. And that's really something that I appreciate so much. So I've really grown through our relationship. And especially in the sense that I feel like he's the first ever, and I've had great relationships in the past. I've never really had somebody by my side that mistreated me or made me feel like I wasn't worth being treated in a good way. But with Kaspar, I really feel like he appreciates every side of me. Because in the past, in some relationships that I had, I always felt like there were some points of connection and other elements of my character, of my being, certain things that I was interested in that weren't necessarily valued, were maybe even rejected, couldn't really come to surface so much. And in our relationship, I really honestly feel like I can 100% be myself, and I don't have to hide any element of myself, which is incredibly freeing, and it has really inspired me to, I think, become the most authentic version of myself yet.
That's what I should have said, the last part also. I just want to add that. Copy paste.
It's like, that is, when some people ask me, what is modern couples? It's like, it's this idea that we show up for each other in a way that we individually become the most authentic version of ourselves, but really enabled in the relationship and supporting each other and creating something that ripples into the community. Even like for me, the relationship, the way you describe it, I feel like this might just be the episode where everyone listener goes to forward it to their partner and be like, I want that. This is what I want. Like just what both of you described.
No, okay. Get out of here.
Yeah. What would you say is the secret sauce in your relationship to make all of what you have experienced over the past, well, less than a decade, right? Like 7 years that you've been together. Like, what is the secret sauce in your journey of individual growth and togetherness? And maybe just for context a little bit, the two of you live in the Netherlands, which means for one of you, it was also moving to a foreign country. Well, we studied in the Netherlands, but still, you have 2 kids together. You are living in a patchwork setting. So there's also a third kid joining home every now and then. You have businesses together, or you run businesses individually and together. What else is there in the setting? Well, I would say the high performer label probably is true for both of you, being biohackers or in the scene and really wanting to thrive in life. And those are many things to juggle together. So what has helped you over the years to always come back to each other and make all these things thrive and grow.
Yeah, it's funny because all these years, I feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah.
And for me, I think we have a really high alignment of our core values. And that one really high value that we both carry is that we want the other person to be in their fullest expression. And that there's very little, I wouldn't say no, but that there's zero, but that there's very little attachment to, I need you to be a certain way for me to be okay. So there's not a lot of entanglement in that sense, where her honest and most authentic expression is really the thing that I love seeing most in her. And also feel invited to just be the highest expression of myself without her being like, oh, but I need you to show up in this way or in that way, otherwise I will feel unsafe, so please, these kind of subconscious messages that couples send to each other of like, I kind of need you to be more like this so that I can feel more the way that I want. So I think that we both feel very free, and that we both understand that freedom is cultivated through commitment and not through keeping all of the options open, or always, you can have anything but not everything. And I think that we've both very consciously chosen for each other, also effortlessly in a way, because the choice for each other on a heart and a soul level is effortless. But then to actually make that practical and workable in the 3D world, that we both are very willing to put in effort and to make sacrifices. And it's really funny how kind of there's an effortlessness to the amount of effort and sacrifice that we're willing to put in. It's kind of like, that's what I feel like, that those two are very much in balance, that we just know it takes work. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be simple, moving to a new country, having a patchwork family, both running businesses, working from home. Like, there's a lot of work in there. But if I speak for myself, building that life that we have together is kind of the ultimate artwork, the ultimate creative expression that we can make together. So it's like, even through broken nights and the kind of hours that sometimes you need to put in this in this line of business that we're in, and all of these things, it's kind of like, yeah, it feels like we're building a beautiful art piece together, and it's like the best thing that we could be doing with our life. To have this kind of the relationship be a foundation for all the other things that we want to do. That's what I think.
Yeah, you basically said exactly what I was going to say in better words.
Oh my God.
But I think one thing I would love to highlight there is that I think we both really want the best for each other. So there's so many moments where both of us also make sacrifices in order to make sure that the other person feels well and that the other person has their needs met. And it always feels like we're playing on the same team. And this is something that I sometimes see other couples struggle with, is that at some point, especially when things get challenging, there's this dynamic of like, oh, what do I get out of this? Rather than what can we do in order to make us work? And what can I contribute so that my partner feels supported, so that our relationship is supported? So always kind of seeing us and our dynamic and our relationship, and also that, of course, being the basis of our family and of our kids feeling well, as the thing to take care of rather than our individual selves. So I think that's
yeah.
another...
And one thing that I will add there is that you say we both use the word sacrifice, and we also both have a bit of kind of a pleaser pattern from our earlier life. And when I say sacrifice, I really like to think about that word in the original meaning, which basically means to make sacred. That's what kind of the etymology of that is. So a sacrifice is not like, oh, I'm going to give this part. And that's also what I started with, that it's not like, oh, I am now giving something of myself that I don't want to give, but I do want something in return. And now I'm keeping tabs. I really think that if I spend a night with a sleepless baby, then it gives it a deeper meaning to say I'm doing this for my wife, and it's a really interesting thing where there's a big it's a fine line. There's a big shadow side there of like, oh, I'm doing this for her, and now I'm sure that she will give me some approval the next day, or somehow, give me some confirmation that I need, that I'm like attached to some outcome, like I'm doing it for you, but I also want something in return. That I'm really like, wow, I get to be this father and this husband that spends the whole night up, and to be with my kids and to give her a night's sleep. And she does the same for me, of course, but that's just an example where I'm just like, oh, I really get to do this. This is the gift, that I get to be this person in my life, and that I get to show up as a father and a husband in this particular way. And it just makes it that night so meaningful. And of course, it sucks to not get any sleep. But then, that's an example of it being made sacred by being allowed to do it for each other. You don't have to ask any questions, by the way. This is
We can just ramble on for hours.
just riff off of each other.
I think one
I
thing I also
know.
just very practically is just honest communication. Because I've had many people say this. I was like, oh, you guys are brutally honest. Kind of in like a weirded out, but yeah, also very
Like, how honest can that be? Of like, is it you instantly say when when the other does something you don't like, or what would be like? There's this term of radical honesty, or saying the things as they are, and especially when it comes to communication in the couples coaching and therapy world, there's like so much, right? So many books on, be it nonviolent communication or like scripts of how to have an argument on how to do these things. And I have my own approach to it and also a personal opinion about this, but like, how does communication look like for you in a day to day? Because you need to make sure that the kids are taken care of, that the business is running, and also that your relationship feels like it has a priority and is seen.
I think the most important thing is that, at the foundation of our relationship, we don't have the existential fear of being rejected at our core for saying something in a certain way. So I can say anything, and it will not make her love me any less. So if you show up in this, or if you say it that way, I'm going to withhold love from you. I have no fear of that in this relationship. And also that we generally are capable of coming to an understanding where, and sometimes we kind of actively have to say it, like, because sometimes it feels like you're at odds with each other if you say something and it doesn't land well, and then clearly you said that to insult me, and then we're both in this pattern of like, but why else would you have possibly said that if it wasn't to insult me or to make me feel bad? And then if we're stuck in that, at some point we can kind of go above and go like, oh wait, actually we're on the same team. Let's give each other the benefit of the doubt and just be like, you probably didn't say that to insult me, so let me just say that that was insulting to me. And but I'm willing to kind of give you the benefit of the doubt that you didn't do that to hurt me. So yeah, we definitely get stuck in the weeds sometimes in arguing, especially in the chaos of life that we've had in this last year with moving to a new house and a new baby and everything. But then we always kind of like crawl back and find the like, oh wait, you didn't actually say that to be mean to me. And there's in that whole process, there's no rejection of the person or withholding of love in that whole thing.
We don't really have any scripts or any specific structure that we follow when it comes to sharing or arguing or discussing things. But I think one thing that we do really consistently is to involve physical touch in moments when we just get lost in the words, to just sort of step out of the argument and give each other a hug, for example, and sort of use that as a tool to bring the energy down and to really reconnect. Because like Kaspar said, it's so easy to get lost in the weeds, especially if you have sleepless nights and a lot going on and you feel triggered in some way. And of course, both being people pleaser, like we already mentioned, there's a lot of potential to get triggered and a lot of potential to just kind of get stuck in unhealthy dynamics. But I think also after all these years now, we know each other's triggers pretty well. We know how we function, and we can also very efficiently call each other out, like, hey, you're doing that thing again.
Yeah.
Or I'm doing that thing again, or we're getting lost in this dynamic between the two of us. So let's just take a step back, leave the argument to rest, just hug it out. And then, at some point when we've both come back to a point where we feel safe and where we feel a little bit more clear-headed, maybe also to come back to most of the time find that the argument wasn't really so.
I think I have a script for that. There's something that I find in that I need to like access this script if let's say we're arguing or something like that, and then when I really, the thing is that you're super intelligent and you're super good with words, and we're both pretty good with words. This our work. So it's easy for us to get into kind of like a joust of argumentation because it's something that we're both relatively good at. And in those moments, if I can find something inside myself of like, okay, but why am I throwing all of these words at you? Is because I'm trying to crawl back to the connection point. So it's kind of, we both go into our head survival pattern, and then I have to like transcend into myself and be like, okay, but what do I really want right now? It's like, oh, I'm actually trying to connect to you and I'm using my words, but they're failing. And then what I, for example, say is like, okay, so for me, I feel like we're just arguing now. And what I really want is to feel connected. And then what I have to say, because I'm really annoyingly stubborn, because you know it's all in those moments. I'm like, if I can just find the right words, I can be right. You know, if I can just tell the story, but it doesn't work that way. So then I have to. The script that I access is like, what I really want is, and then I say what I really want, and this is not working, and then I have to say to myself, actually, because I don't know if that's what you need to hear, but I have to say to myself, like, I'm willing to acknowledge that I'm wrong or that I'm not doing this in a way, in a good way. But I'm this is just my best attempt. But I'm willing to completely say that you're right and that I'm wrong. But how can we find a point of connection there?
Mm.
And then what's interesting is that is an invitation, because what I find fascinating about the dynamic is that in the moment of conflict or something, we don't have big conflicts, but if I'm just dissecting it, I really want to connect in that moment, and then you're like, oh, but I need to get into a different state to be able to connect, and then we have kind of an agreement. Okay, so we're going to stop doing this kind of boxing match on the mental plane with words, and I'm just going to stop asking you to connect with me, and you're going to get yourself to the state when you're ready, and then we'll get back to the thing, and then the discussion is usually gone. And so yeah, I think that is again what we said in the beginning, that we usually have some type of a bird's eye view where we're like, oh, but we're on the same team, so let's find a way to kind of reconnect in those moments.
And I think we've mentioned this a couple of times before to people is that, and what's really helped me in my awareness of how these conflicts go is an understanding of the nervous system and how it moves. And that's, of course, a lot of what Kaspar talks about in his work in relation to breath. But that's really helped me to see like, oh, I'm just in an aroused state when it comes to nervous system regulation. So right now there's just certain things that will only trigger me more. So I need to regulate my nervous system. I need to regulate myself down to a different state in order to be able to, for example, receive a hug or receive a certain level of argumentation in a way that I can comprehend and then work with. Because in a state where I'm just, sort of ready to fight and moving towards aggression, not necessarily in a physical sense, but where I'm kind of like, ready to fire back a new argument, certain things just don't land in the same way because my view on what's happening is very limited. I don't really have the capacity right now to take a lot of factors into consideration and to really keep a balanced understanding of what's going on. So that's really helped us as well. Sometimes even to say it in these terms, to be like, oh, this really got me into a fight state, or this really triggered me into freeze. Or, now I'm really in a sympathetic state, which doesn't allow me to continue this argument, continue this conversation in a good way. Right now, all you're going to get is fight energy. And so that understanding and also being able to track that in yourself, in your own system, to to recognize like, oh, what are the signs that I'm getting overloaded? What are the signs that I'm being triggered into fight, into flight, into freeze? What are my classic sort of fight, flight sentences, behaviors? In which moments am I simply trying to escape? In which moments am I triggered to attack? And in that, also really learning about yourself, not just in your relationship and in your communication and in your day-to-day interactions with your partner, but also in life, has been super helpful to me to be able to track that in myself. Like, where am I at, and what can I do to regulate myself in order to come back to a state where I can actually face whatever's ahead of me.
It's one of the tools that, or one of the frames that's very present in each of my couples coachings. And it's also one of the reasons why I say that relationship coaching, working with the nervous system, has an impact on all areas of life. I love that you just showed how it plays a role in everyday conversations in these moments, and really to become aware of what's going on in your body. It's so powerful. And yeah, that was a great share. So I noticed that many of the couples that call me, also the couples that are watching this, are usually coming from a state where something happened in their life that said, oh, we need to find new tools, new solutions, new inspiration. And it's oftentimes a critical moment in their life. As a couple, this one argument, that just goes to a deeper level of really like, is this relationship it or not? Like, that's usually the moment when couples call me or individuals call me. And I wonder, because you seem to have such a deep level of trust in each other, in the relationship, and really like, you are going to do this life together. It's like, yeah, like what you radiate is a clear 150% commitment to each other and to this life together. What helped you form this trust? Was it just there from the beginning on? Usually there's some testing in the beginning in a relationship, or these crucible moments that I just mentioned of like, whoa, we are really in a conflict state that goes deeper than anything. But then if we overcome this, then we actually learn, our nervous system learns that we are safe with one another, and we can take on these challenges together. Short interruption, because this message really needs to go out there. The quality of your relationships impacts the quality of your life. It is, in fact, the key factor. And here we are, fearing and shying away from commitment, shying away from the emotional work, when really this is what distinguishes us from the machines, embracing emotions and learning how to embrace differences. So modern couples, what started out as the small coaching business has turned into a university, or I like to call it a universe. It is the place where ambitious leaders can upgrade their relationship skills up front. It is the place where couples turn to when they wonder, should I stay? Should I go? Where we explore, if necessary, the graceful path of uncoupling. And it is also the place where we newly introduce bespoke matchmaking for ambitious individuals. If you are interested in any of that, because really every phase of life is an opportunity to grow your relationship skills, check out modern-couples.com. Once a month, there's a free masterclass where you can meet me, where we can connect, as well as if you like more the one-on-one approach, there is a limited amount of free discovery calls. See that you can get hold of one of them, and I hope we get to connect. I look forward to elevating your relationship. What would you say were like the things that helped you really grow stronger together in the course of your time together?
I think when we met, we definitely, like Kaspar already touched upon briefly, we didn't necessarily have the best outside circumstances to make this work, in the sense that I was still in a different relationship that I was ending. Kaspar had just gotten divorced. I was living in Berlin, and I had my whole life there. I had my job there. I had my friends there, my apartment there. My whole life evolved around being in Berlin. Kaspar was living in the Netherlands. He had, his daughter at the time was quite young, and there were so many circumstances that, sort of looking at it from a very practical point of view, made it relatively difficult to make that choice, actually. And there were also, at least in my life, a lot of people that said, like, wait, like, this guy's probably just rebounding, right? He just got out of his marriage and he's living in a different country, and how could he possibly be serious about this relationship? And I just had this deep sense of connection that I felt from the start, where that gave me the curiosity, and it almost gave me no choice but to explore this. So the choice that I made for myself at that time was to go for it and to just see what happens, because the connection that I felt to Kaspar was so strong that I think always would have, if I wouldn't have given it a shot, I would have always regretted that. And that was somehow like an inherent sense that I had. It's like, okay, I'd much rather go for it and see it fail, and at least not look back on this thinking I haven't given it my all. I don't want to live my life regretting that I didn't give this a chance. And I think because there were so many moments where both of us could have very easily stepped out of that dynamic and said, like, look, it's just too difficult to move to a new country. It's just too difficult to make this work as I'm still going through divorce, as I'm becoming a single parent right now, as I'm having to give up my entire life to make this relationship function. And all of these reasons would have been completely legit, and would have probably also made it easy for us to stay in touch, because it wouldn't have been personal in that sense, right? Like, there were so many easy ways out, so to say, that would have been super understandable, would have been very easy for somebody to sort of note and be like, okay, I get it, like, it's not about me, it's just really about the circumstances. But because both of us kept making that choice and kept moving closer together and kept making these sacred sacrifices to give it a shot, and to me, at least, this is what it felt like in the beginning, was just always another step to making it work, but not necessarily with an expectation of, oh, we're going to live our life together and we're going to have kids together and we're going to have this beautiful family and work. Like, none of that was an expectation. To me, it was really an exploration of, like, hey, what if I add this to the mix? What if I make that small sacrifice? Where's that going to get us to? So what's that going to feel like? And just sort of take it from there, take it step by step. And because there were so many moments where we consciously chose that we wanted to continue on this journey together, at least I can say for myself that I, with every step, started building more and more trust in the fact that I'd chosen the right path to embark on, but also just in us as a couple and in our dynamic.
Yeah, one thing I find interesting is a pattern that we see in our work. There's like this joke that if you come to my retreat, that your relationship might end. It's like we should put it in the disclaimer for fun, and it's a running joke within the team, because we've seen so many people who were in very long. This is probably a really bad
Bad
marketing pitch, but it happens, and this is a common theme where people, they go on a path of self exploration and self discovery, and then they realize that the relationship they were in isn't working anymore. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, and one thing that I've realized is that relationships work based on core values. And they're at the core, and they're usually quite deep inside ourselves, and they don't necessarily work based on interests. But most like surface level things are like interests, conveniences. And conveniences is not just, oh, we live in the same country, we're in the same phase of our life, you have the same job as I do. Like, a lot of people connect on these things, but convenience is also, oh, I have learned that I need to always protect people and cross my boundaries in order to be there for others. And this other person has learned, like, oh, I always need to be taken care of because I'm weak. So you have a savior and a victim, and that is a convenience. And on a surface level, that shows up as, oh, this relationship works because, for example, you find yourself defeated after a long day of work, and I get to be the savior for you and be there in that way. And then both of our patterns kind of interlock perfectly. But at the surface level, that could just mean, that you're reaffirming a trauma and unsafety, something that at the core you feel is wrong with you, and this other person is patching it at the surface level, but while at the core level you might actually not be aligned at all.
So it's
And
kind of like patching it versus healing it.
yeah, but also the fact that a lot of people seek out partners based on these surface level things, like, oh, we have the same job, we like the same football team, we vote the same politics, we have the same hobbies. This person knows how to say the right things to me when I'm feeling sad, and all of these things kind of click together on a surface level, and then the relationship works based on these kind of surface level interests. While actually, after some years, if one person starts to change their behavior on the surface, they start to change their interests, their politics, their hobbies, they get fascinated by a completely new way of life, then they suddenly realize, like, oh, now that we are moving away from each other on this surface level, actually now it's being proven that we were never aligned on a core level. Because if you're aligned on a core value type of level, then it doesn't matter if the other person has a different hobby, even though you used to love doing this hobby together, or even if you're like connected on politics and this other person goes way to the other end of the spectrum of politics, that can be completely safe within a relationship if you feel safely attached and aligned in your core value system.
Actually,
And
also in a friendship.
the friendships work the same, absolutely, yeah, and also business relationships work the same. That it turns out you thought that you were fully aligned, but it was just a surface level alignment. And in my work, for example, in the retreat business, in the transformation business, you see one person in the relationship go through a transformation, and suddenly the other person feels very unsafe because they start to realize, like, oh, now that you behave differently, we don't match on the core level. And I think it was a blessing, as you just said, to loop it back to what you shared. It was a real blessing that things were so inconvenient, and that I was kind of like a lifestyle entrepreneur type of person, traveling the world, and in that way, and you were in a corporate, I mean, and that's the funny thing, you were in a corporate environment, but the corporate environment didn't really match your core values because you're a very free spirited person, and there was a lot of inconvenience in the sense that you lived somewhere else. But there was also that we were both not looking for a relationship. I was like, I'm single for the first time in 15 years. I'm definitely not. And I said this also to Anna when we first met after our first date.
That's good news, because
Yeah.
I'm actually in a relationship.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not looking for anything, So it was so, and I love that you used the word explore. All we were doing is going like, oh, there's something here. And then all of these other things, really good reasons to not make it work. We both didn't need to have someone in our life in that moment. So we were also not functioning on like, oh, I'm alone for the first time in 15 years. I have to have somebody around me now because I don't know who I am without. I want to know who I am without someone around me. But then I realized that looking in the mirror of this kind of unconditional love was the ultimate way for me to get to know myself. Um, so I think, yeah, a lot of people, when they come together, they're like, oh, we have the same job and we like the same things and it's all just working out so effortlessly. And then it's always like, well, that could also be masking that you don't match on a core level. And we didn't have that pitfall of any hidden unmatches, because the only thing that kept everything stable was the places where we did fully connect, and they had to be really core level things in order to make those choices to actually be together.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think for us to connect, like you just said, I mean, we had a lot of also shared interests, for example, which brought us to the same place in the first place. So we actually met at a biohacker conference as well.
Well, that one you just referenced in the intro, that was our official
Different
4-year
edition.
anniversary, I
Yes,
think,
yes.
or 5-year.
4 or 5 year.
One of the
Since we
first
had
years.
met.
Yeah.
2017 we met.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that sense, it was, of course, a product of a shared interest that we ended up in the same place at all to begin with. But then there wasn't any convenience around, like you said, us being together through easy circumstances. But we really had to connect at these at the core level, and understand, for example, we share the values of freedom. We share the values of, for example, honesty. Like those are more which in a way seem very abstract, maybe at the beginning of a relationship, especially where you're really trying to latch onto very specific things like, oh, I like this about that person, I like that, and this is what we do together, and this is what makes me feel good in spending time together. But I think we had the blessing of really having these underlying synergies uncovered very early on in the way that we had to relate.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I'll also say about that is that we both held our personal development to a very high degree, because you were, of course, faced with the very intense dilemma of, I am in a relationship and now there's this other person, and you are not an unfaithful person at the core at all. So you were really thrown into kind of like a pit of having to work through your own shadows around that. And I was in a divorce, I was going through the worst grief that I've ever felt in my entire life. I was super devoted to this nuclear family with my daughter and our daughter, and the 15-year relationship, having spent this whole life together. I was going through so much grief. So we got out of, and those phases of personal crisis, of course, teach you a lot about yourself. So as we were both facing a personal crisis from the beginning of our relationship, our personal development and working through that was an essential part of that. And me figuring myself out, like, who am I even? And you the same. So working on our individual selves had been a part of that very early on. And I think that is also important, because I do meet quite a few couples where one person is really like, oh, but who am I? What are my shadows? What are my traumas? And then there's another person who's like, let's just not fucking talk about that because it freaks me out, like, and we were both like, you know what, we don't know how life works. Let's just see what we can figure out together.
Yes.
And I think in that also no expectation of this to be anything or to become anything specific. Because I think what a lot of people, or what I observe in relationships, is that people are sometimes in love with the idea of somebody more than the person themselves. So you're kind of looking at somebody and thinking like, oh, if only you sort of worked on this trait in yourself, you could be so much more. And, if only that changed about you, and I know you can change. I know this can be different. Then we would be such a perfect match, and we would fit together in a much more effortless way. And I think that was just never a way in which we approached this. There was no expectation of this to be anything at all. Also, I think because we both weren't looking for anything specific, there wasn't, because I think sometimes also when people are really looking for a relationship and sort of projecting what they're looking for on the other person in the beginning, and thinking like, oh, this is sort of my list of like things that I want in a partner. And I think you could be that, even if you're not that right now. I think you have the potential. And then you fall in love with the potential. Exactly. Especially
I was like,
at that age.
Is that the father of my kids, or is that the one? Because I'm 35 now. It has to happen. And then you're like contracted because this person has to fit the mold.
And then also, you project all of these things onto the other person without that person necessarily wanting that at all. And I think in the way that we got to connect, there was just this raw honesty of like, hey, we're not really looking for anything. We don't even know what we're looking for, to be honest. All that we can see is that we have a beautiful connection of some sort. So let's just explore and see where that takes us. And that's, of course, a big blessing. So it's difficult to reproduce because, of course, if you're in a situation where you've been looking for a partner for a long time and you have these ideas and wishes, then it's of course a very difficult, not difficult, but very different situation to step into a relationship from. But I think that was definitely one of the blessings, that there was no expectation on either of us to be anything at all.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to love, I think for many, it's like we have certain pictures in our mind around love stories, be it, from Disney, or from, how a wedding as an ultimate goal looks like. And then we lack a little bit openness towards how love could also unfold. And what I hear in your story is this uniqueness of your very, essence of your love story that unfolded not by planning, but by staying open to, its own life and its own growth, by every day choosing again to be it, lean in, or, offer something to the relationship and trust it, right? And make things work, but also holding its potential without forcing anything. And sometimes, I mean, Kaspar, you brought up the topic of personal development and how it challenges relationships. Sometimes it's really also like we standing in our own way by, wanting to stay in a relationship because it's the right thing, or not wanting to hurt someone. But really this, let's say, love is not enough to save or have a thriving relationship. It's like the foundation. But what you offer as well, this idea of like commitment to growth, commitment to, we don't know what's coming in the future, but we are here for it, and we will be able to, navigate that together. This is a commitment, and this is something where, yeah, you can still feel freedom in the togetherness. I feel like that was very present between the two of you.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think this is also something that excites me in this phase of my life, is to dive deep with one person rather than to continue dating different people and sort of seeing different expressions of human connection.
Yeah.
And again, I totally understand if for other people that's different. And I think there's a lot of people out there that really thrive on this idea of continuing to date and continuing to explore how it feels to be with different people, and how to connect with different characters in different ways. But for me, that's just no longer so interesting. For me, the sort of path of development in the field of relationships and beyond really lies in diving deep with one person and really sticking to that commitment no matter what.
Yeah.
Of course, this isn't meant to say that if you're in a relationship that really doesn't serve you and that might be harmful to you, to sort of to stay on that path no matter what. But if you feel that at the core, this relationship is something that really helps you grow and that really serves you and that's aligned with who you are and is something that you want, to not get thrown off by challenges on the way. Because, I mean, let's be real, we do have our challenges. So, for example, running a patchwork family has been challenging on so many levels at so many different points in our time together. And that's something that we continue to work on, continue to learn about, continue to figure out together. But it's nothing that ever sort of at the core challenges our understanding of, this being a commitment for life.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, how do we get to navigate these challenges together? Rather than, is this something? So that's never really a question we ask ourselves, like, oh, is this the point where we shouldn't continue walking this path together? But it's rather like, hey, we know there's a shared path. Let's just see where it heads. Like, let's see, where to find that.
On that note, maybe also to bring it more into the now, like what are the two of you building these days, or what are you, what's your mission that you together want to achieve, to build? I know you are also working together, so maybe let's go more into the now and how you make that work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the most important thing for us is to, like, we're both, I would say, kind of generalists, expert generalists, that we're always interested in many different things. And the challenge there is that we both want to be equally committed to family life and our relationship and business life and all of these things. So that is really something that we are working on right now. And yeah, one thing that we really enjoy doing together is the facilitation work, making music together, facilitating psychedelic ceremony or therapy, however you want to call it. And what I love about it is that what I'm learning from Anna is that she is definitely goal-minded and she's capable of doing all of these things that I perceive to be masculine, like setting a goal on perfectionism and like achieving certain things that I've been stuck in a lot in my life, but that she does it from a very present kind of, like, she just just radiates her talents and her being and her presence, and then that kind of naturally evolves. And I'm really excited that is turning into like a co-creation that we're in together, that we get to spend really wonderful days just being in service to that work, and um, doing what we both love most, like making music together, being in that ceremonial space together, and that we're really enjoying every second of it. And like in this work, looking at each other like, wow, what an amazing day, or what a blessing to be. And we almost have like these telepathic communication on those days. And it's a lot of work to set up, and it's a lot of getting everything done. And it's like in a week where it's super busy, and then our only quality time together is us working together, but it really nourishes us at the core. And what I like about it is that it doesn't have this particular mission of like, oh, this needs to be something, or we need to be something for people. It's just that, hey, this is right in front of us. It's just there. There's people who want this kind of work. We're really excited about doing it. And it's kind of, we're stepping into life's invitation together, more and more together, actually, now. And what I really love about it is that it's not, there's nothing on the line there. There's nothing like, it's not like, oh, if this doesn't work, then we have a problem financially or practically. Is that my business is running really well. It's financially sound, and your personal work is the same. And we choose to meet up in that, out of this abundance of just the love of doing it together. And I think that is really, to have. And it's funny because it is in alignment with our core business, but it feels like we have a little project together that is just for passion and for purpose. Even though it's actually also core business, but it feels like a passion project that we get to indulge in together. And then it just so happens to also attract people who want to sit for a full day around us, and be in that space.
And I think it actually very much in terms of how it unfolded, or how it's unfolding, very much links to the way that we met as well, because there was no expectation in the beginning for us to work together at all. Like that wasn't necessarily the plan. We never sat down to figure out like, hey, how can we align our talents? How can we set up something together? But it was simply, life's invitation. So we a few years ago started sitting in psychedelic ceremony.
Run to the toilet while you speak. I'm sorry, but
we started sitting in psychedelic ceremony together for our personal development, for our personal growth, together quite a bit. And over time, kept getting invited by certain facilitators to come in as musicians, to come in as space holders. And that was something we just did out of passion, because we loved it, because it felt aligned with, our personal path of development at the time as well. And then more and more people started coming to us saying like, hey, but do you guys also run ceremonies alone? Like just the two of you, like with you as the facilitators? And in the beginning, we just kept declining. But at some point, there was just a critical mass of people asking us to step into this work. And so we did. And in that sense, also, it wasn't a specific choice that we made. There was no expectation, again, for this to be anything. Similar to when we met as a couple, there was no expectation of where this should go. And also in this work that we now do together, there was never any expectation of this to, be financially sound, to take on a certain shape and form, to meet certain goals. And I think, again, because there wasn't any pressure from the outside on what it could be, we could just freely explore. And in that, it was actually able to grow and become all of that.
Beautiful. And like, I have this theory that, we are living in these cities in modern day and time. And I think us as generation, we are really trying to somewhat bring back of the ancient wisdom that got lost. And I think when you mentioned that, when the two of you entered the first ceremonies, I think that was also the time when I first saw you on Instagram again, and it was like you were right there in the jungle and colors all over the face, I think. And but what I now hear is, not only like both of you have music in your heart and soul, and this moment when we sing together, or when we as a couple, as a family, as a tribe come together to sing, to be with the sacred, to sit in ceremony, like something happens that we have forgotten almost in our modern times that is possible, which is, the frequencies we tune in. And when you said, we always almost communicate without words, I believe that is possible, and I believe that yeah, be it conflicts, but also really harmony is created in those moments that lets us go beyond the logical right wrong, but more of like, we are building something together here. And both of you seem to be in that, in those spaces, in a frequency of giving to the community, be it because people see in the both of you the authenticity, the love, the healthy energy, and want to be in a space with you. But really what you're doing is something that used to be quite normal in a tribal setting, to come together and be in a space where you just feel welcome and whole, and where there's love and where there's community, and can totally see that in both of you.
And this is what I really love about these spaces. What inspires me so much to do this work is that these are really the moments in life that I feel are most authentic and raw, which in a way is sad that our society has come to a point where we barely ever see each other cry, where we barely ever see somebody else going through a hard time unless we're super close to them. And in these ceremonial spaces, it's really beautiful to see how strangers walk in, and then at the end of the day, or at the end of the weekend or week, family walks out, simply because you've just been real with each other. Not necessarily because you know each other for such a long time, or you know all about each other's lives. You've not necessarily even had so much of a deep personal interaction. You've just been real around each other. You've just shown up as yourself. And we so often see that sometimes we have chat groups, for example, with participants of certain retreats, and then even years down the line, people are still in touch, even though they just met for a weekend or they just met for 5 days.
Yeah.
And the connection seems so much deeper sometimes than a connection that you might have had with somebody you went to school with and have known for 20 years. And I think in that also, that is really the medicine to me in many ways. Not so much, I mean, of course, the substance, but also the authentic way of being around each other that is welcome in these spaces. And I think in that we've also really grown as a couple, and also as a result in our individual ways of showing up, is to really invite that in more into our work. So for example, when I actually first met Kaspar, he very much had his stage presence and his sort of behind the scenes presence, I felt. And the first time we met, I actually kind of had a sense of like, oh, he's a bit arrogant, and remember being quite triggered by that. And when I then actually met him behind the scenes, I was like, wait, that's a completely different person. Whoa. And now when I look at you in your work and in your personal life, there's not so much of a difference there anymore. So I think this work has also really helped us to embrace who we really are, and take off our sort of professional masks as we face our audiences and our work. And that's a big blessing. And I think that's also what inspires in, for example, seeing us work together. The other day, for example, we sat in ceremony together, and then somebody at the end of the day said like, oh, it's just so beautiful to see you guys being so connected in this work, and feeling the love between you. And we're like, hey, we didn't even interact that much that day. We're just kind of doing our thing. We didn't even feel like we're particularly connected, and sort of radiating our love outwards. And still it seemed to have come across. But I think that's because all of these filters have disappeared more and more.
Yeah.
What I love also is that we have to have an interesting life where we, and this is also due to our work, and I of course have a bit of like a fairly large audience, and I'm to a degree known in the field, and that also means that parts of your personal life automatically radiate outward and are visible to others, which is an interesting dynamic, because it's very important also to have things that are personal. but that also means that you get a lot of things projected on you, but you also get a lot of things reflected back to you if you have kind of like a known presence. And especially, so the community that we currently stand in has its foundation in kind of my retreats initially, and then the more that Anna also started stepping into similar facilitation work, it's really become a crossover of a group of people that have met. It's kind of like the breathwork tribe, and then we have people that come in and go out, and then we have people who stay and they become part of a larger community, and then we have like this very small, tight-knit community of friends that's kind of at the core. And it's just like really lots of adjacent cool social circles. But yeah, it's just very interesting that in that larger social circle, these people have met through this type of work, and it's mainly work that we have facilitated or that I've facilitated. So it is very interesting that, and it's a weird thing to reflect on, is that in some ways we have a sort of central role in not necessarily in the lives of people, but in that particular path that they're walking on. And so, for example, people who follow my live certification program, they yeah, they watch 25 hours of lectures. So that I'm on their screen for weeks, on a daily basis, and then they build a relationship with me, and then they come and meet me, and then one thing that I love so much is that I've been following you for so long, and you have such an influence, and now I finally get to meet, and they really say it like, now I get to meet your better half, and now I get to see who you are in relation to your wife and in relation to your kids, because our kids are always at the retreat. And it's strange. It's really weird to kind of develop our relationship and our dynamic in front of people, so to say, in front of an audience. It has a lot of kind of unique things to it, but a lot of great blessings also is that, yeah, if you are visible, a lot of light shines on you. People also project things on you, and you get to reflect on those. And it's just really cool to be like, oh, it's so, we're just being ourselves around I have this 5-day retreat, and then I just teach, and we have the process, and then in the evening we just like have dinner with the kids, put the kids in bed, we're together. And then we get so many beautiful things reflected that people at the end say like, oh, I had my whole process and I learned so much, but also it was so inspiring to see you together. Mm-hmm. And then I'm always just like so curious in like, why, it's a great compliment. Like I can receive it and be like, oh, that's cool. But I want to know like, what is it? It's really, really special to see the relationship that we have kind of spark something in people and do something for people. And it really humbles me also, where and I sometimes say to also the groups, I was recently interviewed for this documentary, and they go like, yeah, and your wife and kids are here, and I go like, yeah, because if my wife is there and my kids are there, people can't put me on a pedestal. I can't pretend to be something I'm not when my wife is around, and especially in the work that I'm in with a fairly large audience, there's this thing of like, oh, I have to show up in a certain way. And then when I have Anna around, I'm like, oh no, I just get to be myself, because she's always going to see me, and it doesn't matter what the audience thinks or what people think, and I just get to be myself, and I'm just going to be my weird self with my amazing, weird, awesome wife. And then yeah, it's just really special. Like last weekend, we had a retreat, a ceremony, and at the end, somebody came up to me and she said like, seeing you together gives me hope.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what a gift, to be allowed to receive such a profound thing. And it's just humbling, it just really makes me so honored that something about the way that we get to be together is also meaningful to others. And it's that's really one big inspiration for me, that just makes me reappreciate what we have in a different light.
Yeah. We are social beings, right? Like humans, we are social beings. And if you remember one thing, which is, as a child, what you did was to copy what your parents did in a way. And all of a sudden you practice, how to cook and how to go to work and like all these things that you do. And the way we relate, we also learn from there. So like part of why I do what I do is really because we lack sort of these real tangible stories around love and relating and how to make it work in a time and age where people live longer than ever, where we have opportunities more than ever. This kind of, I want to have it all. But then I also want a love story that is somewhat like grounding, rooting. Where do I see that? And like, that's why I capture these stories, because they inspire. They not only they give hope, but also really they give us an idea of like, oh, I can tap into the energetics or the imprint that I got from Anna and Kaspar in that moment. What would they do in this situation? Give my partner the benefit of a doubt. Okay. And that's how we learn as social beings, kind of these memories that we can remember, can see. Yeah.
And just to echo that with one more thing that I think is also amazing in our life that I'm really grateful for is that we have also through this work met the kind of people who have a same stance in life, and that we are not trying to project an image of our relationship to our friends. So if we are having an argument and our friends are, we live in a very communal way. So people walk in and out, and it's not like we're hosting guests. It's like, hey, you're in our house, then you're in our life, and you're welcome in every way. And we have the kinds of friendships who also have really incredible relationships, but also our single friends, and we kind of we argue in front of our friends, shamelessly, and then they actually are there to support us, so it's not, we are not this you have you have this idea, this, like, people in monogamous relationships have this idea of like exclusive monogamy, where what we have is for us and nobody else can be welcomed in that. You have to be everything for me, and I really love that we are very open in the thing, in the way that we share our life with our friends, and that we have people around us, so also our friends, that share these same core values, so that we also get to be a couple in a broader social context of people that really have each other's, I should say, best interest in mind, and that we also really honestly get things reflected that we're working on by allowing people into our life. And it's the essence of that is, at least for me, what allowed me to do that is to allow myself to be very vulnerable around the people that I feel safe with. And I think for relationships, this idea of the nuclear family, of like, you find the one, and then you have these two people, they come together and you're supposed to figure everything out by yourself, and then you have your kids, and then that's your unit, and you need to be in your own house with your own things and solve everything together. I think real, open, raw, authentic, vulnerable living is also finding people and that you're safe enough with, that you can really invite them into the closest, most intimate moments of your life. And this is what we practice in ceremony, because in ceremony, everything is out in the open. You're completely raw and naked and authentic. And for that to be held in a sacred way is really special and really healing, just by being seen in your most vulnerable state and still being accepted. And this has been like the thread in our life together, is to seek out those spaces, and also to have the kinds of friendships and also have those relationships with our family as much as we can. So my mom, for example, lives in the house with us. She's super up close with everything. And the friends that we have, they all live from that basic idea of holding space for each other, and working on this, weaving this tapestry together, that is where you feel the connectedness, where you can kind of lean back into that social surrounding. And I think that is a really essential thing that modern society has kind of tricked everybody out of, in a way, to believe you're an individual, be by yourself, take care of yourself, don't lean on others, don't trust others. And I'm just really grateful that we have that kind of community, that we understand, like, oh, this individualism is a bit of a trap, it's an illusion. Humans need other humans, and if you can feel safe around other humans and be vulnerable around them, it's just such a blessing. It relaxes everything so much.
And I think so. For example, we bought a new house end of last year and moved in March. And for the last 10 months, two friends of ours who also had a baby in our house in that meantime were living with us. He's an incredibly skilled carpenter who helped us renovate our house, and they were just a part of our little tribe here, with Kaspar's mother, with our kids, with their babies. So at some point we had basically 4 kids in the house, 2 of them babies. And of course that is a super raw way of being together, in a super authentic way. Because I mean, if you all haven't slept and it just sort of like showing up in the kitchen in the morning, like one eye shut, with all these babies around that are screaming and turning the place into a big hot mess, then there's just no way of sort of being polished in your way of communicating or in your way of showing up on the inside or outside.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that way of being together really nourishes us. And I think that's why we've always, as a couple, since we've lived together, had a very much like open house policy where people sometimes just stay with us for 2 months and come and visit and just really share our life and really share our life with the kids. Our kids are very much used to people being around, and I also very much see how that's influencing them in the way that they relate to people. But it's also taught me a lot around how to relate to each other, because especially if you, like Kaspar mentioned, have people so up close in their way of relating to each other and in their way of relating to each other differently than we relate to each other. We, for example, have some friends as well that are open relating. Actually, I think the only ever couple that I have successfully seen open relate.
You should have them on, actually.
I will talk to them in 2 weeks.
Okay,
I already
great.
introduced them.
Yes.
Incredible people. But because we get to be so involved in the way that they relate and they get to be so involved in the way that we relate, I feel like I've learned so much about our dynamic that I never would have learned without having that shared interaction.
Yes.
And for example, having another couple in that same phase live in our house as they're navigating these same challenges, and sort of seeing how they deal with it, how we deal with it, what's different, what's the same. It's just so rich.
I can totally resonate completely with that. There is so much indirect learning, but very, very tangible learning in coming together and staying with each other in each other's places and spaces. And thank you for drawing these last pictures of how life in your home looks like and how family also grows beyond just the nucleus family for you. I think we are coming to an end. So maybe just last but not least, we have touched upon many concepts. I don't want you to leave with like, oh, I wanted to have said this one thing or like something else that came up. But is there something you still want to say before we end? But other than that, maybe just share with us like what's currently a topic without going into too much detail, but what's currently a relationship topic for the two of you that you are working on, just to give us an idea of like, oh, this is, currently a question that we have or a topic that we discuss these days.
Prioritizing us.
Yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind for me as well.
In relation to having kids, having work, community, taking care of others, all of this stuff, and just to be like, oh yeah, but where's this singular unit that is you and me? How can we make time for that again? And yeah, I think that's now a priority. And in the last this year has just been one of those years where that isn't the central point. But it's really cool to see how us coming together in our way, and it's just the two of us, has led us to have this web of amazing life, kids and family and community and work and all this stuff that we share together. And I'm really excited in this phase of life where it makes total sense the first 9 or 10 months of having a baby for everything to be focused on that. I'm really excited about now kind of spending some time on really being us again, like really recharging the relationship in just the two of us, just being together, and to see what that can bring. Yeah. So, but it takes some work to prioritize that.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind as well, especially with time being limited. There's always so many things that are potentially on the table, like, oh, I could do some work, I could do this, I could do that, and that still needs to be finished. And to really make that a priority, I think, is what we constantly have to remind ourselves of, and how much that is also an investment into the future. It feels like something that's, almost like kind of a guilty pleasure, like, hey, we could be working, but let's just hang out and go to the spa and do something for ourselves. So in that sense, it often gets deprioritized because it's like, oh, that's just for fun, like, and really at the core of it, us strengthening our relationship and making sure that we're good, even in these challenging times, is actually the most important work, is actually the foundation of keeping all of this running, making sure that we're energized to face the challenges that we're facing, that we can continue building this family together, that we can be the role model to our kids that we want to be, that we feel energized enough to run these businesses and feel inspired to continue on the path that we're walking on. So even though, and that's sometimes difficult for me to fathom, to be like, hey, it might on the outside seem like, just enjoying our time and nothing that's so relevant or not so productive, but actually it's the most productive thing.
Yeah, it's like when we spend time together, sometimes it feels like we're sneaking off and getting away with something, which is kind of exciting in itself.
Yeah.
But I also saw kind of this picture of the relationship's nervous system calming down and bringing it to harmony. And yeah, so in that you can master all the challenges that come afterwards.
100%.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories, giving us a look behind the scenes, and yeah, keep inspiring people, showing up in this world in your most radiant, beautiful self. It was an honor to talk to both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this work and for having us on.
Imagine a world where emotional mastery, relational support, and inner work come before heartbreak, resentment, divorce, reactivity. And you know what increases the odds of your 10x kind of love? Taking people along, sharing this with the people that have the biggest influence on you. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to my channel and share it with one or the 5 people that have the biggest influence on you and that deserve the 10x kind of love. Let's raise the bar stronger together.